recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Baker, I'm about to have a town meeting in the District of Columbia because of complaints about noise over residential neighborhoods. Now, I asked Mr. Boeing asked Mr. Connor of Boeing whether or not noise was a part of the process. I think you yourself have testified that it is now part of the process. Now, what we find that FAA did when there were complaints in the past about flying over areas, residential areas, in this case in Virginia, was simply to fly over areas in the District of Columbia. As a part of the Next Gen process, I was concerned. You have Next Gen, you're supposed to have quieter aircraft, and of course, Mr. Connor testified they were quieter. We have asked for them to be flown over the river. We're wondering whether when you get complaints about noise, why are we getting complaints about noise with all the new technology? And two, why would the FAA simply go from one area to another area to relieve those complaints? Do you have a system for relieving those complaints, such as, for example, our suggestion in the nation's capital that you fly over the river where no one lives?
Yeah, the actual routing of the aircraft is a different part of the organization that I'm not familiar with, but the noise of the aircraft, the actual noise levels are set by the EPA, and that we work with companies like Boeing to make improvements.
Well, certification is part. I mean, noise is part of certification.
Yeah,
do you believe that, considering Next Gen, and Next Gen is already in effect to some extent, that the noise levels are consistent with increasingly flying over inhabited neighborhoods?
Yeah, so the noise levels are set by the EPA, so what we would do is to assure that we can work with the manufacturers to ensure that the aircraft themselves are meeting the levels.
So you say the EPA has told you that the noise levels are acceptable and that I should be talking to the EPA?
They set the noise regulations, and we're delegated to find on by their behalf.
So here we have delegation on top of delegation. Yep. Let me ask a question that was never fully answered. It is very interesting and in some ways troubling to hear Mr. O'Connor testify. I think he raised this on his own accord, that FAA should not lose its own gold standard role. There was no question that he feared that that was happening. I then asked him whether or not sequester and cuts had any effect. He didn't say they were the cause of the loss of the standard, but he testified that those cuts had hurt, and he gave some specific ways in which they had hurt. Now, leave aside China. This is my question. Why is the United States losing what had been a gold standard? What happened here? We're fine with you. What is the source of this loss of that lead role? Since there's no question, if you leave aside China, even the Europeans are second-guessing our role.
Yeah,
I mean, I asked that of all three of you.
Yeah.
Ms. Norton, you know, we've heard that metric over the last couple of years about the U.S. being the gold standard, and in fact the U.S. losing its position of the gold standard. I think that metric is more of a sort of an explanation that the world of aviation is changing. The manufacturers that we talked to had a mixed opinion about whether the U.S. was the gold standard or EASA was the gold standard or whatever. But what they were saying is, in the past, if the U.S. said okay, then it was okay. That was the gold standard. Because if the U.S. approved it, it meant it was
so Dr. Dillingham,
ready to go.
Apparently it's not okay today.
Well, there are some contributing factors to that. No one is saying that the U.S. standard of quality has changed, but what we see is ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization, telling nation states that you must establish your own certification processes and apply those as you see fit and charge what you see fit. So instead of what it used to be that it could just go through, they're going through another process.
So you don't think it casts any doubt on our standards here. It's just that everybody wants to do it his own and wants to repeat what's already been done.
Exactly. If in other countries, those organizations have to pay for themselves, so automatically they're going to charge us. And no one is saying that, you know, our quality is any less. The world is just spinning with more civil aviation authorities.
Well, could I ask you this? That, in terms of the training, Ms. Baker, of your own engineers, we understand there's a shortage. I don't know what it takes to be an engineer, if you have to be an engineer to be a certified engineer, but there are complaints of inadequate training, even from your own personnel. What are the difficulties you're encountering in certification of engineers, so that you can feel confident that, in fact, the inspections should be recognized everywhere?
When the engineers are hired by the FAA, they already come to us with an engineering degree, and most of the time with a lot of experience coming from a manufacturer of an aviation product. What Ray Connor
Do you do your own training?
We do our own training, and when there's new technology, we'll send them out to training that is outside of FAA, where there is the expertise for us to gain that from the absolute threshold experienced people. What Boeing was talking about was systems engineering. So we are currently hiring people with a lot of expertise in fields like structures and avionics. What we're moving towards is a systems engineer, someone who can look at the entire system and judge where they should be making the interventions and how they can improve the system and that's more of a process type of thing versus a specialty engineering.
Thank you.
Gentlelady's time has expired. The gentleman from North Carolina is recognized.